Construction stations.
Greetings folks, Euler here with the next World of Warships Division replay. Our match today features a trio of Tier 10 ships, with Jimijaz in the U.S. Navy destroyer the USS Gearing, Limwilkie in the Soviet gunboat destroyer Khabarovsk, and myself in the U.S. Navy heavy cruiser the USS Des Moines. This is a domination match on Sea of Fortune. There are no aircraft carriers, and there's a fairly even distribution of ships both by class and tiers from Tier 8 to Tier 10. The three of us are using our ship's respective legendary upgrades. Jimijaz's build is a torp-centric build, including the Torpedo Armament Expertise skill, Torpedo Tubes Modification 3 upgrade in slot 6, and he mounts the 10.5 kilometer Fletcher torpedoes that reload more quickly than the traditional Gearing torpedoes, something that he will definitely take advantage of in this match. Lynn's ship build is the same as from past replays on this channel, with an emphasis on endurance and gun systems, and he takes the engine boost special upgrade in slot 2 for longer high-speed antics typical of Soviet gunboats. And then finally, my build in the Des Moines is a semi-competitive build with radio location for destroyer hunting, and I take the surveillance radar special upgrade in slot 2 for longer duration radar. As with many replays on this channel, this is going to be a close match. In fact, this match won't be decided until we've entered the 10-second countdown phase of regulation time. We've started our perspective from my side in the Des Moines as we're approaching the Bravo cap, and we've switched to Jimijaz's perspective as he is entering Bravo. And he's going to send out some area denying torps here in just a moment, but he's also going to get radared. Both Jim and I are using radio location, and there's obviously a ship sort of northwest of the Bravo cap, and we can expect that it's obviously one of the radar ships that's come over here. We're not sure if it's the Moskva yet or the Des Moines at this point. So Jim is going to get out, and you can see my position sort of on the south or southwest corner of Bravo to try to give some radar support both to Alpha and Bravo if we need it. And I am being targeted here by a couple of ships, including the Friedrich der Große. Keep an eye on those torpedoes that Jimijaz just sent out earlier. I take some pretty serious damage here from the opposing Vladivostok, which is positioned on the north side of Charlie early in the game. So I haven't even done any damage, and I'm already having to use a repair party charge. Jim's torpedoes have successfully landed, or a couple of them, on the Friedrich that was on the north side of Bravo, pushing him off, but Jim has been able to move back into the Bravo cap and is taking it. And you can see that I have activated radar to try to detect some of these ships, the destroyers that are near the caps. I move forward here a little bit to try to get the Gearing, the opposing Gearing that's in the Charlie cap, visible, which I am able to do, so he's right on the cusp of my radar range. But again, I am being targeted here, and I can't see the ship that is targeting me. It turns out it is, again, the Vladivostok. I'm backing up here. I'm taking advantage of the very good maneuverability that the legendary upgrade provides, but I take another really big spanking from the Vladivostok. He gets a Citadel hit on me, and I'm already down to below half health. We switched over to Lynn's perspective in the Khabarovsk. He's been sort of in this cat and mouse situation over on the Alpha side, and now has picked up the opposing Z-46 and is going to go hunt him down. He's taken out the engine of the Z-46. He's burning himself, but he's just going to hold on to his repair party in case he ends up taking a torpedo or or catches fire in the second place, which he actually has done. He is still holding on to his damage control at this point. We almost have the Z-46 down. Going to get a little more damage in. Not sure if he gets him down with this salvo, or I think one of the other ships gets him down. And here come the torpedoes from the Z-46, but he's basically just going to get nicked on the nose, and he is going to have to use his repair party. Now, he's also had to use a damage control, both the damage control and a repair party, and he's down to less than half health as well. But we have gotten the Z-46 off this flank now, which is good. and he's going to retreat here and basically focus on putting fire on opposing capital ships as they are trying to move into Alpha and keep them from taking that cap. So he's basically going to work on the south side of the Alpha cap here, do the traditional Khabarovsk thing, go very fast and fire your guns all the time. But he's taken quite a bit more damage than he normally would have at this point in the game, and isn't going to get a whole lot of that back for quite a while. In fact, I don't know if he even gets back to 3/4 health at any point ever in the game again. But again, he is just going to focus on keeping the cap reset at this point. He's actually going to rack up quite a few cap defenses in the act of defending the Alpha cap. We've switched over to Jimijaz's perspective as he and I are moving over to the Charlie cap to contest it. There is the Vladivostok that spanked me in the Des Moines a couple of times pretty hard, and a number of people have called target on him because he is now below half health, and he's out in the open right now. Jim is sending torpedoes here on the smoke that is on the north side of the Charlie cap, and hoping to either drive out or hopefully hit a destroyer if it's still in the cap. And then he's going to slip into Charlie here and start contesting. In fact, I think when he gets in here, he is uncontested and will start taking the cap right away. Yes, that's right. We lose a Bismarck. So we're down 3 ships right now to the opposing team's 1. And you can see the Vladivostok is burning out. In fact, we've just lost the Izimo. So we're down. We have a 3-ship deficit. We're about to make it a 2-ship deficit once this Vladivostok goes down. And there he goes. And Jim's radio location is now toggling between the northwest and northeast side of Charlie. So it's either the Akatsuki or it's certainly one of the destroyers that he's tracking right now. He's trying to keep an eye on where these are coming. You can see myself in the Des Moines approaching the Charlie cap from the south west side. Jim is going to smoke up here relatively soon, and I'm going to move into that smoke to leverage it to try to push off or keep the opposing ships that are north of Charlie out of the cap. And Jim's just about to capture Charlie here, and now we will have 2 caps to the opposing team's 1. And we've also sunk the Akizuki that was on the west side, or northeast side, excuse me, of Charlie. So we have 2 caps. We do have 2-ship deficit, but but the opposing team has no caps at this point. In fact, are just about to re-enter Alpha. And again, Lynn, you can see that's on the southeast side of Alpha, continues to put fire on the opposing ships as they're trying to move into Alpha to keep that cap contested. We're at my perspective here as I'm putting some continuous fire on the Friedrich der Große. I have hydro running here in anticipation of torpedoes from one of the destroyers. I am going to back up here so I have some protection from the island that's on my port side. We have an allied Georgia that has moved into Charlie, and he is overextended. There's no need at this point for him to push out like this and put himself basically in a crossfire from ships that are over on the at the Alpha side and the Friedrich der Große that's on the north side, and we're going to end up losing the Georgia here right now. So we've lost another capital ship. So we basically have no battleships at this point, although we do have all of our destroyers still, which is very good. We switched back over to Lynn's perspective on the south side of Alpha, as again, he's continuing to try to keep the opposing team from taking the cap, but the problem is we're just losing the grip, and he has taken too much damage to be able to get too much closer to, or much closer to the cap, and try to keep the other capital ships from taking the cap. In fact, the opposing Des Moines is in Alpha, and he's holding his fire, I believe, in order to ensure that they get the Alpha cap and don't get reset any further. Jim has put some fire on the opposing Daring in order to keep him from taking the Bravo cap. He sends some torpedoes out here, but keep an eye on that low health Gearing that's also moving over toward the Bravo cap. And we'll see what happens to him here shortly. I've switched over to my perspective in the Des Moines as I'm trying to get into a position to not place myself in a crossfire between the opposing ships that are coming over from Alpha and the Friedrich der Große that is on the north side of Charlie. So I'm trying to get in a position that I can hopefully get on a flank if we can get the Friedrich out of the way, and then I don't have to be in a crossfire, and we'll see how that works out. We've switched back over to Jim's perspective, and I mentioned to keep an eye on what happened to that gearing, and those torpedoes that Jim sent not too long ago do end up sinking the gearing and successfully defending the Bravo cap further. We've come back to my perspective here as I'm about to have a face-off with my counterpart here in the Moskva. I have AP loaded here. I did not expect that the Moskva is going to do what he actually ends up doing. In fact, I was actually quite surprised that he takes this action, knowing the weakness of the Moskva. The Moskva is very tanky when it's bow on, but it has a very raised, exposed citadel when it is flat broadside, and with a reload of 5.5 seconds, or faster than that, thanks to Adrenaline Rush, first salvo 6 citadels. Next to, I get 5 more citadels, able to take down the Moskva very quickly. So successfully defended, but I'm still kind of getting pincered. We're going to come back over to Lynn's perspective, as the opposing team has not only taken the Alpha cap, but they are now starting to make a coordinated push into Bravo. And the best thing that Lynn can do at this point is just try to farm some damage and try to keep as much fire damage and dot damage on those opposing ships as they're moving toward Bravo. We switched over to Jim's perspective. He's on the south side of Bravo. He is getting radared here, and we can now see that the opposing team has moved into Bravo. Jim's going to send some torpedoes into the cap to hopefully hit a few ships. We'll see how that works out. But since he's radar, they obviously know he's there, and he slipped behind the islands here so that he avoids taking some damage from them. You can see myself on the sort of the northeast side of Jim in the Charlie cap, and I'm basically hugging this island really hard that's on my port side, trying to avoid taking damage, but at the same time I want to be in a position to support our Khabarovsk. Jim does land a number of torpedoes on both the Des Moines and the Jean Bart that have moved into the Bravo cap to help keep things concealed, or keep things defended. Excuse me. Switch over to my perspective as I'm trying to get some fire going. Actually, my first goal was to actually put fire on the Daring, but my guns weren't really in that position, and so I put fire on the Friedrich. He actually ended up damage controlling the first fire I set on him. I was kind of hoping I'd be able to get another fire going, but I'm again in a position where I'm going to be put into a crossfire. I have to make a pretty risky move here to try to get over to this other island so I don't take a salvo from the ships in Bravo. The opposing Friedrich is going to get another big chunk take a big chunk out of me, and I have very little health remaining at this point as I'm trying to get over to this other island that's on the north side of Alpha and try to help support my Khabarovsk, which is being hunted down by the Daring. Switch back to Jim's perspective as he's sent out his next round of torpedoes, and as I mentioned, he is definitely taking advantage of the fast torpedo reload here, sending torpedoes onto the opposing Des Moines, and he is able to get the opposing Des Moines down and help take out another ship, although we have lost the Bravo cap. Switch back to my perspective here is, again, I've actually done quite a bit of damage to the Daring, but I'm now exposed to the Friedrich's secondaries, and he does end up taking me out in a close quarters engagement, so I'm out of the match. So come back over to Lynn's perspective, as again he's continued to farm ships here. He's done a really good job working this Massachusetts B to keep him from trying to support ships that had moved into Bravo. And in fact, Lynn's gotten another fire here, and I think he was hoping to be able to finish off the Massachusetts B, but there's going to be a couple other ships, the Prince Eugen and the Izumo, that are going to come down and put some pressure on him, and he eventually is going to have to break off his pursuit of the Massachusetts B. With the Massachusetts B being on fire and quite low health, Lynn really wants to try to get him down before he's able to get some more repairs in, but he's going to be unsuccessful in doing that, and he's going to end up having to peel away here. Again, Lynn has used all of his repair party charges, and he's down to about quarter health, or maybe less than that at this point, and he's going to have to switch his attention to the Prince Eugen and the Izumo. One thing that I think he's going to realize here fairly quickly is that he's actually going to end up having to move the more towards the east so that he doesn't get cut off, because he's about to run into the map border fairly soon. He's going to focus, I think, right now on the Prince Eugen, and now that he's got a couple of fires on Prince Eugen, he's going to come over here and try to set fires on the Izumo as well. So he's kind of toggling between the two ships to keep some dot pressure on them. You can see Jim's position on the north side of the Charlie Cap. He wants to be able to get torpedoes on. He wanted to get torpedoes on the Friedrich der Große that had moved south through Bravo, but didn't really have the angle to do it. But he is going to get an angle to get torpedoes off on the opposing Jean Bart, which is heading out the north side of Bravo. The Allied Khabarovsk has sent torpedoes southward towards the Jean Bart. It's a really suboptimal torpedo send angle, but what it has done is it's forced the Jean Bart to be perpendicular to Jim's torpedo sends, and we'll see how that works out with those torpedoes. And we can see now that the Jean Bart is already starting to accelerate and turn to his port side, so he will end up having his stern to these torpedoes once Jim's torpedoes get that way. Jim is trying to keep an eye on also this Friedrich to see what he's going to do. Right now, we are behind by almost 100 points. We have a one-ship deficit, but again, all of our destroyers are still alive, which is good. But our Fletcher hasn't really put himself. In fact, you can see a couple of torpedoes have now landed, or there's the second one on the Jean Bart, and that's definitely going to help the Kagro when he goes back over to try to attack the Jean Bart again. Switch over to Lynn's perspective as he's putting some fire on the Prince Eugen, and this is where we can see the value of IFHE on the Soviet gunboats, is that these heavy cruisers that have the 27 millimeter plating are very vulnerable to the 130 millimeter guns of the Soviet gunboats that have IFHE. Allows them to get very consistent alpha damage, and there's Wither, and he is able to take down the Prince Eugen, but you can see he's riding the border right now because he basically was getting cut off, and he had to get the Prince Eugen out of the way. Come back to Jim's perspective as he's setting torpedoes south towards Charlie, hoping to catch the Friedrich der Große off guard in case he moves up. And one thing that Lynn is going to do is basically he just needs to live at this point. If we lose another ship, that basically makes it a lot easier for the opposing team to win. And even if Lynn does no more damage at this point, the main thing is that he live. And so he's just basically going to run. The Fletcher is significantly out of position to be able to try to support or take a cap. Our Kagero had been spending a lot of time chasing ships as well. He did make a pretty bold run on the opposing Jean Bart just a few moments ago and was able to take the Jean Bart out of the game. And we've asked the Kagero to move over and at least contest alpha to slow the rate of point advance of the opposing team, which he is doing. Jim has got visibility on the Friedrich again, and again, he's definitely leveraging the very quick reload of the torpedoes in this build. He's going to send out another couple sets of torpedoes here on the Friedrich, but we are desperate at this point. We're down to less than a minute. You can see that the regulation timer in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Jim sends out a concealed shot in order to get a cap reset, and then is going to keep an eye on this Massachusetts. But what is key at this point is what happens to those torpedoes that Jim just sent on the Friedrich der Große. And Jim is able to land a couple of torpedoes, sink the Friedrich, and that gives us the lead right as we're down to like 9 seconds remaining, and we end up winning the match. So again, Jim pulls off the heroics here, rightfully earns top XP. Both Lynn and myself do pretty well as well. Our Kagero got a lot of XP. We were a little frustrated with how he was performing because he was doing a lot of ship chasing rather than cap contesting, but nonetheless, he does end up earning a lot of XP as well. I'll leave the results up for everybody's ships, and you can take a look at that at your own leisure. But overall, I think our team did really well, and our division did very well, and was a really tight game to win. So very exciting and well played by both teams. So I hope you enjoyed the replay and the commentary. Please do leave your comments below. And as always, we hope to see you out there, and we wish you happy sailing.